to get out in front of this and, tried to persuade Netflix not to come forward with it. I think it's an interesting argument because what they're claiming is, Curtis Jackson, aka 50 Cent, has had a longstanding, animosity against Diddy and sort of vice versa. And because he's at the helm, they're arguing this can't be taken seriously. This should sort of be seen as propaganda. And one of the things that Netflix hit back with was, yes, he's the executive producer. He doesn't necessarily have creative control. And that's something we...
A recorded threat originating from inside a prison has shaken the entertainment world, suggesting that Sean Combs, despite being incarcerated, still believes he holds influence over the industry that made him famous. The public may have assumed that concrete walls and a collapsed business empire had effectively silenced him, but audio allegedly leaked from Fort Dix tells a different story. The recording, which contains what appear to be coded references and veiled warnings, has now landed at the center of a Netflix documentary executive produced by 50 Cent, one of Combs' most outspoken rivals. The footage was originally captured by a videographer Combs himself hired to chronicle what he envisioned as a comeback narrative. Instead, it has exposed his legal thinking and triggered a cease and desist battle against the streaming giant. The controversy deepens with a newly filed lawsuit alleging that Combs once told a victim directly, "If I can get Shakur hit, what do you think can happen to you?" A claim that, if proven, would link him to one of hip-hop's most enduring unsolved cases. Meanwhile, his family is reportedly fighting with business managers over basic living expenses, and former staff say they have gone unpaid. A man facing...
So we just got this new audio from the Diddy trial, and it is pretty explosive. This is audio of a voicemail that Diddy left to the Jane Doe who's been testifying in this trial for the last couple days. And he sounds really annoyed. He's talking about her maybe giving him the silent treatment, and his response is, "I got a busy life. I can't be dealing with your silent treatment, and we got to keep it..."
Asset forfeiture and a possible witness summons in a high-profile murder investigation doesn't make recorded threats unless he feels he has nothing left to lose, or everything left to prove. The empire isn't simply crumbling. It is being dismantled piece by piece from within, and by most accounts, the most damaging evidence has yet to come to light. The audio is rough and compressed, filtered through a prison phone system not built for clarity, but the voice is instantly recognizable, carrying the rhythm of a man who spent 30 years commanding rooms, now reduced to whispering into a receiver at Fort Dix, where Sean Combs currently spends his days working in a media library, distributing movies and religious materials to fellow inmates as part of an 18-month rehabilitation program that represents a stunning fall from grace for the architect of bad boy entertainment. Yet the leaked call circulating across social media doesn't sound like a broken man. It sounds like a man who is still managing something, speaking in language that is strange and almost theatrical in its specificity, with references to worm food, requests for vitamin E and special case serum, and pointed instructions about keeping insect away from his property while he is away. Phrases that online analysts have been dissecting with growing conviction that they function as coded directives to associates on the outside. The tone is difficult to ignore. Combs speaks as though he still holds leverage, still operates from a position of power, even as his legal team works to suppress the very footage documenting his dissent. And the gap between his current reality and his apparent state of mind is striking, because a man pushing a television cart through a prison chapel does not typically speak with the confidence of someone holding cards, which means either he is fully disconnected from his circumstances, or he knows something the public has not yet been told. The recordings at the center of this storm were never intended for public consumption, having originated from a decision Combs made in the months leading up to his federal indictment to personally hire a videographer and document his own life. A calculated move designed to shape his narrative before the government could define it for him. Yet what the cameras captured instead were private conversations between Combs and his lead attorney Mark Agnifilo, covering legal strategy, indictment, predictions, and deliberate media manipulation that would ordinarily be shielded by attorney-client privilege. Except that the presence of the videographer Combs himself invited into those rooms may have unknowingly waived that protection entirely, making the footage legally accessible and leaving the door open for someone to sell it to documentary producers. That betrayal could not be more complete, because the very evidence Combs commissioned to protect his image is now the centerpiece of a Netflix production executive produced by Curtis Jackson, known as 50 Cent, who has spent years positioning himself as Combs' most vocal and relentless critic, with the document.
Hard to say because there's still such a big question mark in the air because, Curtis Jackson, aka 50 Cent, is one of the executive producers on the series. Him, the director, Netflix in general is not saying where they got this footage, only that it was obtained legally. Diddy's side is saying this is coming from a videographer I hired. I know we'll get into the cease and desist. One of the arguments they make is, this is subject to NDAs or agreements that the videographer had signed with Diddy because he was, employed by Diddy.
Titled The Reckoning, shooting to #1 on the platform within days of its December release, prompting Combs' legal team to fire off an urgent cease and desist letter claiming the footage was obtained illegally, while Netflix declined to identify its source and stated only that the material was acquired through proper channels, leaving the question that is now consuming industry insiders not whether the footage is damaging, because that much is settled, but who sold it and what they were willing to trade for price. What the footage actually contains makes the leak feel less like opportunism and more like a deliberate act of sabotage. The recordings show Combs visibly agitated, openly frustrated with his legal team's cautious approach, and pushing hard for a more aggressive media strategy in the weeks immediately before his arrest. At one point, he allegedly demands that his attorneys locate someone who understands what he calls the dirty side of media, someone capable of countering the wave of accusations building against him. He speaks like a man who genuinely believes he can win the public relations war even as federal investigators are closing around him, and that confidence, which many would simply call arrogance, is entirely consistent with the pattern of behavior described across the flood of civil lawsuits now surrounding his name. One recent filing, brought by a man named Steve Otis, alleges that during a 2012 encounter inside a Midtown Manhattan hotel suite, Combs invoked the specter of the Tupac Shakur assassination to
continue to engage in all these freak-offs with him, and he sounds really pissed off.
Hey, I really don't know what's going on with you, but I just want to just give you a heads up that I'm about to really disappear on you. You feel me? I'm not going to be playing these games with you at all, at all. So I don't know. You think you silent treating me, and you think I'm going to be, nah. You'll have a rude awakening.
Silence him following an assault, allegedly looking Otis directly in the eye and making clear that a man capable of arranging one disappearance could certainly arrange another. The threat, according to the lawsuit, was not vague. It was a deliberate reference to one of hip-hop's most enduring and unsolved tragedies, designed to communicate both capability and willingness. Otis claims he remained silent for more than a decade, paralyzed by the implication, and only felt safe enough to come forward after Combs was behind bars. The timing of his filing is difficult to dismiss as coincidence. As the documentary airs and the prison call spreads across the internet, new accusers continue to surface, each one adding another layer to what is becoming an increasingly dark portrait of the man behind the empire. The mention of Tupac Shakur is not a passing reference. It is a thread that keeps pulling at the fabric of Combs' carefully maintained denials. Dwayne Keith D. Davis, the self-proclaimed gang leader currently awaiting trial in connection with the 1996 shooting, has spent years publicly claiming that Combs offered $1 million to both Shakur and Death Row Records founder Suge Knight eliminated. Davis has given multiple accounts of what he alleges happened, including a detailed interview with Los Angeles police investigators in which he named his nephew Orlando Anderson as the gunman. For most of the years that followed, those claims were largely dismissed, written off as the self-serving statements of a career criminal